Welcome to the Control Tower, everyone. I am your tower director for today's high-stakes explainer, and we are initiating a full-scale air traffic control exam emergency simulation. If you're tuning in, you already know the intense pressure of the exam hall. Today, we are unlocking the ultimate blueprint to mastering the Cambridge AS and A-Level Arabic 9680 Paper 4. We are looking at the radar, and we've got a massive, high-tariff past paper question coming in hot as a heavy aircraft. I'm going to be walking you through this simulation, acting not just as your director, but as a stress management specialist. Managing extreme time pressure and prioritizing high-yield marks is exactly what we do here. If you have been staring at the syllabus, sweating over the clock, and wondering what it actually takes to push your grade to the absolute top, you're in exactly the right place. We are going to decode exactly how the examiners grade your work, and we're going to do it by tracking two of our hypothetical operators on the radar today. Router Alex, who constantly gets bogged down in minor details and creates an infinite holding pattern, and Router Sam, who clears arguments for landing way too fast without verifying structural safety regulations. Let's get this simulation started. Okay, let's dive into this reality check on the radar. The difference between a B and an A star often comes down to the 6-9 limited mark scheme. This isn't just a rumor circulating in the student forums. This is a fundamental, non-negotiable reality of the Cambridge grading system. The stakes here are incredibly high, like bringing a heavy jet down in a crosswind. The difference between a good score and a phenomenal, top-in-the-country score hides inside these specific mark bands. Think of the 6-9 limited mark scheme as the exact, narrow glide path you have to maintain to land safely. If you veer slightly off course, your grade drops. Throughout this explainer, I am going to reveal exactly what examiners are looking for. We are going to look at the exact telemetry they use to score your paper, so you can stop guessing, stop panicking under pressure, and start securing those top-tier marks with cold, calculated precision.
Here is our radar grid initialization, the roadmap for today's operation. First, we'll establish the core theoretical principles. Second, we map the technical methodology. Third, we execute critical analysis. And finally, we will sweep the runway for examiner warnings. We are going to logically break down this overwhelming mark scheme into clear, actionable, stress-free steps.
Let's move into our first sector. Section 1, Core Principles, the true foundation of an A-star. Why is applying concepts to unfamiliar contexts historically so incredibly difficult for students? Why do we freeze when the exam throws us a curveball? Before we look at the specific requirements, I want you to think about this persistent problem that I see on the radar screen every single exam season. Why do we hit a brick wall with unexpected scenarios? We read the textbooks, we learn the theories, but the moment the exam throws an unexpected high-pressure context at us, the cognitive engines stall out. Everything freezes. The answer lies in how we are actually tested, and this is where our two operators, Alex and Sam, really start to mess up the approach. The assessment targets three distinct cognitive domains: knowledge and understanding, analysis, and evaluation. To succeed in the 6 to 9 mark band, you must demonstrate competence across all three simultaneously. It is not enough to just memorize a wide range of facts. Let's look at Router Alex. Alex panics under the ticking clock and reverts to what feels safe: knowledge dumping. Alex lists out 50 different minor details, getting entirely bogged down in definitions. Alex puts the essay into an infinite holding pattern, circling and circling the airport, showing off how much fuel is in the tank but never actually descending to land. The examiner doesn't care how much you've memorized if you can't use it. Then we have Router Sam. Sam looks at the clock, panics about running out of time, and rushes straight to evaluation. Sam starts throwing out huge sweeping conclusions, clearing the arguments for landing way too fast without ever verifying the structural safety regulations, which is the analysis part. Sam skipped the middle step. The Cambridge framework strictly prioritizes analytical depth over superficial breadth. If you act like Alex and just list off everything you know without analyzing it, or if you act like Sam and jump to the end without doing the analytical work, the examiner is forced, by their own rulebook, to cap your score. You have to thread the needle through all three domains. Now, a massive differentiator here, the thing that separates the elite controllers from the trainees, is cross-topic connections. This means integrating different syllabus areas to demonstrate a conceptual understanding that you can actually transfer to those unfamiliar contexts we just talked about. Think of it like a complex radar grid where multiple flight paths have to be coordinated seamlessly.
The principal examiner reports explicitly highlight that candidates who use these cross-topic connections achieve significantly higher marks. This specific detail matters tremendously. Why? Because it proves to the examiner that you don't just see the subject as a list of isolated, quarantined topics, but as a living, breathing, interconnected ecosystem. When you pull a concept from Unit 2 to explain a massive anomaly in Unit 5, the examiner instantly knows they are dealing with a master. You are showing them you have the 30,000-foot view of the entire syllabus.
We are now transitioning into Sector 2. Section 2, Technical Methodology, specifically focusing on the method mark strategy. We have our theoretical foundation, but now we need to know how to route this approach vector. How do we take all this interconnected knowledge and actually get it safely onto the exam paper before the clock runs out? This is a massive paradigm shift for a lot of students. The method mark strategy dictates that marks are awarded for the process, not just the final answer. So the crucial point here is that demonstrating a logical, structured reasoning process is what actually secures your points. Imagine you're an air traffic controller. If a plane lands safely, but you didn't document any of the altitude changes, you didn't log the vector headings, and you just got lucky that it didn't crash into a mountain, you're going to lose your job. The examiners are not just hunting for a single correct conclusion at the bottom of the page. They want to see the engine of your mind working. They want to see the step-by-step, evidence-based reasoning that led you there. They need to see your radar tracking logs. If you just give them the final answer, even if it's perfectly correct, they cannot legally give you the top marks in the 6-9 band because you haven't shown them the methodology. Tower transmission check. We're pausing the simulation for just a second. Before we clear this response for touchdown and get into the actual steps, ensure your transponder is updated. Subscribe to Ace the Exams at the handle @AceTheExams right now and turn on all notifications so you never miss a masterclass. Okay, resume transmission. To demonstrate that process we just talked about, you have to rely on a strict 6-step workflow. This is your concrete visual checklist for exam day. When the panic sets in, you fall back on your training. Step 1. You start by deconstructing the question to know exactly what is being asked. What is the actual objective? Step 2. This allows you to efficiently extract the relevant data from the stimulus materials. You isolate only the variables you need. Step 3. Select your analytical framework to guide your thinking. What formula, what theory applies here? Step 4. You execute with clear notation, so the examiner can follow your exact flight path. Step 5. Verify your results to catch any logical errors. This is your safety check. And finally, Step 6, present with correct professional terminology. Mastering this data interpretation and execution workflow is what elevates a good student into a professional, elite candidate. If Router Alex and Router Sam just follow this checklist, they wouldn't be in a crisis right now. We are now moving into Sector 3, Critical Analysis, where we focus on deepening your evaluation. This is where top-performing students really, truly set themselves apart from the rest of the pack. Now we are hitting an unexpected structural block mid-paragraph. You're writing your essay, time is ticking, and suddenly you have to compare two complex ideas. This is the exact battleground where the A-star is won or lost. True comparative analysis. It strictly requires looking at similarities, identifying parallel traits using evidence, and differences, contrasting specific points and drawing conclusions on their relative importance. And this brilliantly illustrates a major failure point. Router Sam usually just lists the similarities, says they're basically the same, and moves on. That is a crash. You must strictly explore both similarities and differences. Furthermore, to get your paragraph back onto the glide slope, I am deploying the PEL formatting template to guide your sentences. Point, evidence, explanation, link. You have to connect your comparisons using comparative connectives. Words like conversely, whereas, in stark contrast. You aren't just placing two ideas side by side on the runway. You are actively weighing them against each other, using the PEL structure to draw meaningful, high-level conclusions. That is what critical analysis actually looks like on the radar. Let's transition into our live interactive runway workshop for viewers. I want you tracking this with me. Imagine a complex source chart. Graph or text data map has just appeared on your screen. You have a 60-second visual timer in your head to isolate the primary trend variable. Go. How do you do it? You apply this exact deconstruct, solve, evaluate problem-solving workflow. First, identify the given information in that chart. Second, break it into logical steps. Don't try to swallow the whole graph at once. Third, solve systematically.
Fourth, check for reasonableness. Does this data even make sense in the real world? And fifth, make justified recommendations. When you evaluate the quality of evidence, you have to identify the limitations and the assumptions being made. Your major takeaway here, as the clock ticks down, is that a recommendation is entirely worthless if it isn't backed by this exact systematic process. If you just guess the trend variable without proving how you found it, the examiner grounds your paper immediately. We are entering the final sector of our simulation today, Section 4, Examiner Warnings. Let's look at the absolute worst pitfalls to avoid. I'm warning you right now, even with perfect theory, even if you know the syllabus back to front, simple execution errors can and will tank your score. So, I have to ask you a serious question to spark some curiosity here. When the principal examiners sit down at Cambridge at the end of the year, exhausted, and write their reports on student performance across thousands of papers, what do you think they cite as the most common repeating failures? Why are marks consistently lost by otherwise brilliant students? What causes the best pilots to miss the runway entirely? Let's look at the telemetry. This is Assessment 2 of our interactive runway workshop. We have debris on the runway. You need to find the exact violations that are dropping points. Here is the objective truth straight from the Cambridge examiner's feedback. The first massive piece of debris is vagueness. Examiners require highly specific details. They will heavily penalize broad generalizations. If you write the economy changed, that is vague. How did it change? By what metric? Second is formatting. In the intense heat of the moment with the clock flashing red, candidates literally just forget to apply the correct professional formats and presentation. They write a solid block of text instead of structuring a report. They don't label their axes. And third is context. The answers completely fail to be specific to the unfamiliar context given in the prompt. You memorize an answer about a manufacturing business, but the question is about a digital software startup, and you just paste your memorized answer anyway. That is a total system failure. I highly urge you to self-audit your past practice papers against the specific table. Go find the debris on your own runways. Amber warning lights are flashing in the tower. In addition to those 3 mistakes, we have a massive, critical examiner alert. The reports reveal that candidates consistently confuse key terminology under pressure. The rule here is incredibly simple, but it is violated all the time. Always define terms before using them. I literally cannot emphasize this enough. Explicitly defining your terms in extended responses is a non-negotiable professional skill. Don't leave it up to the examiner to assume you know what a complex term means. Prove it to them on the page immediately. Clear the airspace before you build your massive argument around it. If your foundation is a misunderstood term, your entire essay crashes. All right, we are initiating the safe touchdown sequence. Router Alex and Router Sam have finally aligned their vectors. To make sure you never fall victim to those pitfalls in your actual exam, I want to share a customized memory hack to lock in everything we've learned today. Think of this as your fuel to mark budget formula. Just remember the acronym SPC. S stands for specific details. Always use precise data. P stands for presentation and format. Ensure your structure is undeniably professional. And C stands for contextual application. Make sure your answer actually fits the unique scenario of the prompt. If you apply the SPC framework to your final review of an answer before you move on to the next question, you are directly protecting the vital factors that dictate the 6-9 limited mark scheme. You are ensuring maximum fuel efficiency for maximum mark yield. So, as we wrap up this emergency simulation and power down the radar, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. Go look at your past work right now, be brutally honest with yourself, and ask, which of the SPC factors is costing you the most marks in your practice papers? Is it a lack of specifics? Is it poor presentation under pressure? Or are you completely missing the contextual application? Pinpoint your weakness, dive into some past paper questions, and apply this exact methodology. Thank you so much for logging into the tower and learning with me today. Make sure to subscribe to Ace the Exams at the handle @AceTheExams, enable that notification bell so you're ready for our next briefing, and drop a comment down below sharing exactly which paper gives you the most anxiety. I'll see you in our next explainer. Dismissed.